What's up, everyone? This is Angel from WrestlingNews.co, and this is Andrew Ravens, the lead news writer on WrestlingNews.co. So we're gonna try doing something different. We're gonna do basically a roundup of all the news stories going on. I guess the big one is Vince McMahon and Jackie Gayda. I don't know if you saw that today. Rene Dupree claimed on his podcast that Jackie was being demoted or depushed, that her career got depushed because Vince came on to her or made advances towards her. And she said no. And I remember at the time, I think it was her and her husband, Charlie Haas, her husband at the time, they both got fired at the same time. And there were like rumors, but no one could confirm it. There were rumors, I don't know, maybe a year or two after that something happened with her and Vince. So I guess that's, allegedly happened according to Rene Dupree. I think there's more that's gonna be coming out. Brandon Thurston said that Vince legally has to file a motion, I believe, or he has to respond to the lawsuit at I believe it's 21 days. So there's a response that is expected by him, WWE, and John Laurinaitis sometime before the end of the week, by Friday, actually, by tomorrow. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on Vince? Do you think this is going to get worse? And overall, what do you think about what Rene Dupree said?
So the timeline of everything actually works out. And Rene mentioned this, where they were released in 2000, or the alleged incident happened around then. They were released in 2005. Shortly after all this happens, if we believe the alleged allegations that are going on against Vince from Ashley Massaro and all of the other women involved, it doesn't look good. And every time we think, okay, this is it, more stuff continues to come out with Vince. And it's like, it can't get worse, but it does. And with the lawsuit, I expect them to file it probably today. I don't know when this is going to come out, but by Friday of this week, we should know what was filed and what is the next step, because that's the big question. Because there's so many questions out there and there's not a lot of answers. What's going to come from the federal investigation? Are the other women that previously signed NDAs and believe that the NDAs are null and void, are they going to come up? And are they going to speak out? Are there going to be other lawsuits? So many questions out there and not enough answers.
Man, I can't watch some of that stuff from back then now, because now it's like you go back and you watch it and like, holy crap, man. You got in 2001, they did that thing when Trish barked like a dog in the middle of the ring. You had Vince and Candice Michelle, all those backstage, and you kind of wonder, like, was Vince, hiring certain people because of certain reasons, and then you see certain people kind of just disappear. And you kind of now you look back, it's like, was there something going on there? We can't say her name, but and you might have heard the name, but there's a diva from the mid 2000s that is rumored to have there were something went on allegedly between her and Vince. So now it's just kind of like, I don't know. Do you think, do they erase Vince from history? Like, how do you even do that? Like, okay, you can erase Benoit. They don't promote him at anything. But when WWE does the documentaries, I was like, how do you deal with? I don't know. I wonder if he gets erased from history. Like, I think they took him off the open they took him off the WWE website, the corporate website, of course, because he's no longer with the company. He no longer has a superstar page on WWE.com. But this is it's pretty serious stuff, and I'm just wondering how WWE moves forward with their stuff and like their history and all that, because he's so tied to it. He's on everything. Mr. McMahon character dominated that show for so many years, him and Austin, and now it's like you can't even talk about that stuff anymore. Like, I just Stone Cold do an interview, and talk about Mr. McMahon, and it's going to be interesting how they deal with it, because this isn't Benoit, who's just a character on a show. This is Vince, who dominated that show for so many years and the owner of the company. And it's going to be odd, just to hear how they handle this going forward. And, hey, maybe Vince is innocent of all this stuff. maybe, hey, maybe, the worst thing he did was cheat on his wife and the other stuff was consensual and this and that, blah, blah, blah. But there sure does seem to be a lot of smoke to the fire to all. I mean, there's a lot of stuff and there's more stuff that's going to be coming out too. There's been, rumblings about other stuff too. So, and we might be hearing it in the next few weeks. I think Ann Callis, the attorney for Janelle Grant, even said that she has spoken to other people, alleged victims, and that they may be speaking out. So we'll see. But
I think you handle it similar to the Chris Benoit situation, obviously on a much, much deeper level, just because of the history and everything involved. But I don't think you can handle it any other way other than if the allegations are believed to be true, then yes, you have to demonize him. You can't celebrate him. And I would think you just try to erase him from history as much as possible. When he's mentioned in interviews, just say, look, yes, he's part of our history, but we don't condone his actions. They're, just demonize him as much as possible and just kind of move on, because it really is similar to the Chris Benoit thing in terms of how you handle it. It's just on a very much deeper level. And it does help that they are under the TKO banner now. It's not necessarily just the McMahon family. Stephanie's not in there. I understand Triple H is still running creative, but like it is a little bit of a different dynamic now. And then we'll see how it moves forward. But so many questions.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about Drew McIntyre. His contract, I believe it was Dave. Fightful had something on this too, but Dave was first mentioned, Dave Meltzer, that he still hasn't signed a contract, but he seems to be happy with what he's doing. I like what Drew's doing. I don't know if you saw the Walking Dead tweet on Twitter. Yeah, he said something about the Walking Dead should have ended after season 3. Like, he's doing a lot of he's really good with, so he's doing a lot of getting more attention on himself, especially the last few months. The company's doing a good job, I think, a much better job with him, and he's running with it. I think Dave said that he thinks that, or he believes that WWE, well, he says WWE feels that they are going to have him stay with the company. I do wonder if Tony Khan says, hey, I'll pay you X, and by the way, you can go home. Because one thing with Drew is he wants to be able to see his family over in Scotland. So you got let's see, Will Ospreay, who's going to be able to still have his home base in England. I believe Nakamura is going to be same thing. He does not have to move to the United States. WWE, on the other hand, wants their wrestlers to move to the United States. So Drew could conceivably move back to Scotland, be with his family, and maybe even make more money with AEW and work a lighter schedule. So I know a lot of people are thinking well, Drew's going to stay, but I don't think that's going to be. I think creatively he's doing great, but if you're talking about money and your family, I think he should go to AEW. I know a lot of people are going to be mad at that, but that's yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, so just to make the save for you from the comments, you met Okada, not Nakamura, but I know.
Oh, yeah, Okada. Okada. Yeah.
Yes, sir. So let's take a step back for a minute. Let's go back to 2023. 2023 was an interesting year for McIntyre. I was kind of critical about the way he was booked, and I understand that they were building up Gunther and his IC title reign, and it was fun to see him with Sheamus as a tag team, but it's Drew McIntyre. This is one of their top guys on the roster, and he's a tag team guy? What do we do? So I'll praise them, okay? They done a better job. You can definitely tell he's in a contract year because he is being more pushed. He's in a more prominent role, right?
Yep.
Perhaps he main events WrestleMania 40 against Seth Rollins for that World Heavyweight title. But if I'm Tony Khan, to your point, I'm going to have at least a discussion, and I'm going to hand him a blank check. I'm going to do everything in my power to get someone like Drew McIntyre, someone that you can build your company around, someone that has a name that outside of the hardcore base of AEW knows. It's no different from what he's done with reportedly Okada, Mercedes Moné, what he's trying to do with Will Ospreay on a smaller level. Ospreay is very, very good, but I don't think he's on the same level name value as a Moné or even an Okada. But yeah, if you're AEW, you have to talk to him. But if you're WWE as well, especially the way that you pushed him, the way that he's been able to reinvent himself with his heel character, which has been phenomenal. We haven't seen a heel Drew McIntyre in years, right? I think it was before the pandemic. And
Right.
I wasn't even a fan of that character. But what he's doing now, you could make the case he's doing the best character work of his career, right? And is really showing Triple H and everyone involved, like, give me the ball and I'm going to run with it, right? And he is. And it's really fun to watch. And when Punk comes back, that is going to be such a fun and engaging feud because they can really play off of real life scenarios. I loved, I think it was the night that McIntyre laid out Punk and was like, I prayed that you got injured. That stuff fans will rally behind because it comes across as realistic. And it's really, really fun. And they can draw some good money. And perhaps you save that for a Money in the Bank, maybe even SummerSlam, a major event. That match could headline.
I could see Drew McIntyre headlining SummerSlam. I could also see him headlining, like you said, about with Seth Rollins for the world title. I think if WWE really wants to say, hey, Drew, this has changed. This is no longer, because look, the old Drew coming out with the sword, Angela, I think the sword was named, God, was it Vince's mother? I think it was the sword. I think it's Vince's, no, Vince's, somebody, I think, and the sword was named Angela after something related to Vince, I think. I could be wrong. But it was Vince's sword. And it was just like the way he was pushed, it just sucked, man. But now, I think now that's one thing that WWE has is like, look, it's a whole new, Vince is completely gone. Triple H, is not going to mess around. He's not going to BS. So, WWE has options now with they're so stacked. I mean, you've got all this talent. They could do what AEW has been offering to people, where say, hey, look, you can work a reduced, like Randy Orton works less of a schedule now because of his, back issues. He's been around forever. So they could do that too. But I still could see Tony Khan come in and say, hey, look, we're going to offer you X amount. I think it's going to come down to is money and who's going to pay. Because I think WWE could offer that schedule. And I think it's going to come down to pay issue. Like with Mercedes Moné, she reportedly was asking for too much money, and WWE walked away, allegedly. I think Sean Ross Sapp said that back in December. So it's going to be interesting to see. But yeah, I do like what you said about what they're doing with Drew McIntyre. Is great, and I could see him, if WWE wants to give him the extra thumbs up on, like, hey, look, this is a different WWE. Put the title on him at WrestleMania. And, we'll see what happens. But it'll be interesting to see. The next topic is, what is it? TNA talent sent a letter to Sean Ross Sapp posted this letter on his Patreon, and it's all over social media now. TNA talent sent a letter to Anthem. Look, I don't know much. I knew a little. I met Scott D'Amore several years ago. He was a super nice guy to me. I don't know him personally. All I've heard is what people have said. It feels like, and again, I don't know what the finances are with TNA. Maybe they're just losing so much money, and this is what they had to do. But Jeff Jarrett said on his podcast that Anthony Siccione, who took over for Scott D'Amore, isn't a wrestling guy. What the hell, man? Who is going to be the head? I mean, they got Tommy Dreamer. They got, they've got people. But as far as an executive overseeing everything, you can't have a non-wrestling. This kind of reminds me a little bit of WCW having executives over Eric Bischoff, people that knew nothing about wrestling running the company, and that's not a good sign. And it just makes me wonder, like, what is going on with TNA, because if they're in the hole, look, they had a lot of buzz for Hard to Kill for the last couple months. The rebranding, I think Scott's done a tremendous job with the company. It was LOL TNA for so many years. People used to just really crap on that company for all these things, and it was not Scott's fault. It was just the Vince Russo and the stuff that Dixie was doing and whatever. And Scott has really done a great job with them. But I just kind of worry, like, if you've got a non-wrestling guy there, now you've got talent, telling you like, hey, we all love working with Scott. Like, I don't know. It feels like they're going backwards, and it feels like we may start seeing more of that negativity towards TNA that Scott worked so hard to clean up over the years.
Yeah, classic LOL TNA. The amount of interest that promotion had once they announced, okay, at Hard to Kill in January, we're going back to TNA. It's like, oh, well, what are they going to do? And as the event got closer, the buzz got closer. And anytime you have a TNA pay-per-view, it's always been, well, who's going to show up, right? With Hard to Kill, it's like, okay, we've seen who everyone showed up, right? Dolph Ziggler, Nick Nemeth, he came in. Coming out of it, it's like, oh, well, what can they do going forward, right? And then they went to Vegas and they had that larger venue, and it made you want to watch the product. Something I haven't felt in many years, right? I go back to the Fox Sports net days of TNA as a kid in like 2004, 2005. And you see this company that seemingly can never die. And at the most successful time you make a power play like this, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And in regard to the letter, I don't think anything's going to come from that, right? They're not going to hire the guy back.
No.
If anything, I know Eric Bischoff pitched on 83 Weeks on Monday. AEW should bring him in. I think Solid Monster, he pitched the idea of give Scott D'Amore ROH and just turn it into a developmental. Tony Khan, hey, you're free and clear, bud. You just focus. You got a lot on your plate as is, right? You're a maniac as is. Dial in 2024. It's a big year. It's TV deal year. And Scott, go and develop us some talent, and we'll go from there. I think that's the play. If I'm Scott D'Amore, I would definitely take a phone call from Tony Khan. I don't know if WWE would necessarily pick him up, although I think he'd be a great asset to them. But yeah, classic TNA LOL moment.
I think WWE would pick up Scott. It would be good to have him in working backstage either at NXT or maybe, I don't know. There's the spot open on the main roster. Maybe I don't know if Scott would want to be a producer or anything like that, but definitely because he's got friends there. And Scott, I believe, was talking with Triple H when they were when they got Jordan Grace at the Royal Rumble, and then last year they did the deal for Mickie James. Was it last year? I think it was, or the year before. Whatever year it was, Mickie James at the Royal Rumble. So, I mean, and also Jeremy Borash works backstage. You got guys like Abyss. You got a lot of ex-TNA guys who, will speak up for him. AJ Styles. There's a lot of guys back there that would vouch for Scott. But I could see him in WWE. But, it would be nice. Because, look, well, you mentioned ROH. I guess we weren't going to talk about this. But that ROH show, I don't have time to watch. I do keep up with it.
No,
on social media clips, I'll see stuff, but I just there's no time to watch. There's so much wrestling to watch. I think if you put in Scott in ROH and have him run that, I think you could get a buzz around ROH that they haven't had it in a long time. But you get the buzz every now and then when there's a pay-per-view, a little bit here and there, but nothing like it used to be. And I think there's just a feeling with ROH that it feels like Vince McMahon's ECW, or basically Vince McMahon's ECW, or even Vince McMahon's WCW. It wasn't the same company. It feels like a development. It's more like an offshoot of AEW. It doesn't feel to me like ROH. And I think if Tony Khan could just get his hands, just, hey Scott, take over this. It's my company, but I'm not gonna be involved with creative or none of that. You handle it. I think that'd be awesome. So I think that's a big asset for Tony Khan. If he could hire Scott D'Amore, Scott could really help a lot. But I think I'm not a fan. I mean, a lot of people say this on social media. I don't know if you agree with this, but I'm not a fan of ROH stuff on AEW TV. I think it's too much. There's too many titles already as it is. Keep the ROH stuff to ROH and to keep the AEW stuff on AEW. And I think bringing in Scott could alleviate some of the concerns that people have about ROH being too much ROH on AEW TV. So yeah, I don't know if you want to add to that or we just move on to the next.
So I just add two things. One, depending on where he goes, it would be very interesting to see which talent from TNA leaves and goes to whatever promotion he joins, because he's such a beloved guy within that locker room, to the point where they sent a freaking letter to management, right? Like, they love the guy. The thing with ROH and AEW, the further that Tony Khan gets away from the purchase date of Ring of Honor, the more it gets watered down. It's a lesser than AEW. And they had something going on there when they were down in Orlando taping, sets of TV tapings, right? Who's going to show up? That was fun. Now they're just at Collision. Like, what are we doing? And we got some AEW guys that'll come down there and some don't, but I agree with you. Keep the ROH titles off of AEW television. I understand you want to promote, but it takes away from the AEW product. And it's really confusing if you're not dialed in of what's going, what is ROH?
Right? They've already got like 150, well, I don't know, 200 people on their roster or something, or 150 on their roster, on their own AEW roster. And then I get it. You got a relationship with New Japan. You got a relationship with CMLL. You got AAA guys coming in. So that adds to it. And then you got a bunch of guys guys that are just sitting there for weeks that you don't see them. Like, Darby and Sting are and I get Sting is, can't wrestle all the time. But with Darby, you'd see Darby disappear for weeks at a time. And, it's like you want to feature some of these guys more often, like Hook. Hook had that run where he was undefeated, and then he just kind of, he disappears, and it's just like there's too much going on. And I think you take ROH out of just keep it to its own brand, how it was meant to be. You can free up more time for some of this talent, and it would make the product so much better. And I'm enjoying AEW. There's some stuff that they're doing that I like. There's still stuff that they need to improve. It would be really, really nice if they can just kind of clean it up even some more. So that's my thought on that.
Hey, quickly, what do you think is AEW's biggest issue right now? What's the number one thing they can fix?
I think it's that. I think they're working on stories. I think like we're seeing with the Young Bucks. I think it was the main thing was match, and very little story. I feel like they're working more with that, with the Young Bucks beating down Sting and Darby. Last night, we saw more. Last night on Dynamite, this week's Dynamite, we saw more of that. The more the Sting, that they're following stuff up a little bit more. So I think that's one of their main things. I think there's too much that, in the beginning, Tony used to, before the end of the show, under the early days, you would know 4 matches for next week's show. Coming up next week on Dynamite, this match, blah, 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 blah. They have the graphics ready before the show ended. Now you're getting some of that, but you're getting a lot of it, a lot of Tony announcing it on Twitter. And Twitter's great to promote. I love it. It's great, but I know people who aren't on Twitter following stuff or are not heavily in the bubble. I think you got to hit some of these fans. I know my buddy in Texas, he watches WWE. He'll kind of watch a little AEW here and there, but he doesn't know that Tony Khan's tweeting about this match coming up and this, that. You have to hit a lot of the stuff you got to hit on the show. You got to talk about it on the show. Major angles, you got to talk about it the next week on the show. It can't just be like, all right, to the back, we're going to go to the next segment. Something really big happens, you got to talk about that in the next segment. Wow, did you just see, so-and-so got bloodied up? You see what happened? I think they're doing a little more of that now. But yeah, there are things that, I guess, to wrap it up in a nutshell, the big issue with AEW is they cater too much to hardcore, and I'm a hardcore fan. I watch a lot of wrestling. I watch probably more than a lot of people, and I know you do too. I think you got to cater to what WWE does. You cater to a broader audience as well, not just a hardcore fan. There are fans out there that will let me just check out this WWE stuff this week because I am a WWE fan, but I only have time to watch it once every couple of weeks or whatever. You got to cater to those people and figure out how you can get them watching more. And I don't think AEW has done that as well. But I do feel like they are aware of the problems, and I feel like that maybe they're kind of doing some of that. Yeah, I also like one other thing. The inside jokes or the inside comments, like last night on Dynamite. I know Meltzer said it on Wrestling Observer Radio about why are you cutting a cold promo on and mention, without saying his name. We all know who he was talking about. He's talking about Cody Rhodes. Darby Allin mentioned, and then you got fans chanting for Cody Rhodes. Don't do stuff that makes the promotion look stupid, because then you remind people, look what Cody's doing in WWE. Why did the AEW let go of this guy? Stop doing stuff like that. Get the negativity off social media, and the way to do it is by not bringing things up like that. So that's another thing that they probably should just kind of worry about themselves. Maybe don't reference WWE anymore. When MJF comes back, same thing. Maybe I thought that stuff was cool in the beginning. Hey, taking shots, because look, Triple H took shots at them at the Hall of Fame, and I get it. But I think now you just kind of have to, I don't know, you just kind of have to worry about your company and try to weed out anything that may be potentially negative. Stop doing it. If it's going to cause you bad press, bad social media, bad tweets, bad whatever, stop doing stuff. And I think the Cody stuff is not helpful at all. So
yeah, I think, wow, you broke down a lot of stuff there. I would say this, going back to the whole announcements of matches, I missed the days where Excalibur was out of breath and almost had a heart attack because he was running down the matches so fast, right?
Yeah.
You're relying on Twitter, but more importantly, you're also kind of spreading out match announcements for whatever reason from your A show, your most watched show, and you're putting those announcements on Rampage. You're putting those announcements on Collision, which get half of the audience of Dynamite. What are we doing there? I understand Meltzer's gripe about Darby Allin's promo last night or on this week's Dynamite. I didn't like it either. It's Sting's retirement match. It's felt forced and kind of out of left field, but I'm sure Tony Khan had a chat with him afterwards. I'm going to Dynamite next week in Tulsa. They have like 2,300, 2,500 tickets out. I think it's now at a point where we're not in 2019 anymore. We're not even in 2020 anymore, where AEW, they were kind of approaching Raw's ratings, which was on the decline. It's very, very clear right now. WWE's up here and AEW's down here. So you're not on the same level. Stop taking shots. Focus on your brand. Get it back. You have a lot of people that want AEW to succeed, right? Focus on your brand, not the competition.
Yeah, I agree. WrestleMania 41 in Las Vegas. There was I can't remember the name of the Twitter account, but anyways, there was a Twitter account that's dedicated to Vegas, and I think we have it on the site, or I'm not sure, and then I believe Mike Johnson said there were rumblings of PW Insiders. Mike Johnson said there were rumblings about Vegas next year for WrestleMania 41. I think we're going to see WrestleMania go to Vegas a lot more often because you got the Sphere there, the Vegas Sphere. Where they probably, how cool would it be to do Raw there, or the Hall of Fame, or SmackDown? You do that at the Sphere, and then you get a convention center or whatever for the access, and then you got Allegiant Stadium for WrestleMania, and that's one of the nicest stadiums in the country. And then at the same time, Vegas, I'm sure Vegas will make a bid, because who wouldn't want to have what they just had with the Super Bowl? You've got 50, 60, 70, 80, 90,000 fans flying in and spending money on casinos, on slots, and on restaurants and all that stuff. If they go to WrestleMania, if they go to Vegas next year, I'll go to Vegas. As crazy as Vegas can be, I would love to watch. I have been there for Double or Nothing, but I would love to see what WrestleMania looks like in Vegas next year. And doubly excited about seeing a WWE show in the Sphere. And I think if they do that, that would happen. Minneapolis, I'm not sure what the temperatures look like that time of year. I think it's still cold, wintry. I definitely would prefer Vegas over Minnesota or Minneapolis.
I don't buy the Minneapolis rumor. They go to big major cities. I don't consider, like, we're talking Dallas or
that. Oh, but the Minneapolis rumor has been around for years, but I don't know how serious it's been considered by WWE.
And more importantly, Vegas has proven that they're willing to shell out that cash money. They've brought in F1. They just brought in the Super Bowl, right? The Super Bowl just changed everything. I expect Vegas to host the Super Bowl every few years. It'll be on the rotating clock of, them going down to Tampa and Arizona and stuff like that, right? Or Phoenix, wherever the Cardinals play. I love that idea. And to your point, look, WrestleMania is a huge, huge week for not only WWE, but for wrestling in general. You got the stadium, you got the MGM Grand, you got the T-Mobile Arena, right? To host all of these various events, especially for WWE. The city itself can hold all these crazy wrestling fans in there, right? They're going to make great money. I think it's a winner. And if they can get at least a decent offer from Vegas, I say go ahead and do it.
Hell yeah. Yeah, so I don't have much else to say about that, but I hope it happens. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens, but I'm interested to see how, if AEW, that affects AEW's, because you got WrestleMania in Vegas, April later, Double or Nothing. I wonder if that affects their plans with ticket sales and all that, because a lot of those fans traveling to Vegas are also AEW fans, but you're going to have fans that are going to pick one or the other. And honestly, more people are going to pick WrestleMania over AEW Double or Nothing. So that's another thing. I just thought about that now as we were talking, but we'll see. And I guess the last thing is Dustin Rhodes says he wants to wrestle 2 or 4 more years. I think last year he said that this would be his last year. I love Dustin Rhodes. I've been watching him since I was a kid. He's one of the last guys that's still around from when I was a kid. He can still go. He's one of those guys that, I never thought of him retiring. You just kind of think he's going to be around forever. Kind of like a Sting, like he's going to be around forever. Maybe, I think he's in his early 50s, 52-ish, maybe around there. I don't know. I wouldn't be shocked if he's still going when he's 60. You see more guys now over 50 than ever before. Chris Jericho, Dustin, of course. You got Sting. You got, Bobby Lashley's not 50, but he's up there. He's in his late 40s. Goldberg over 50. God, there's so many guys now over 50 that it's like 50 is like the new 40 and the 40 is like the new 30. So, hey, I think Dustin said that he would wrestle more if Tony, permits it. So I could also see with Cody in WWE, I could also see, Dustin even going back to WWE. I don't know what his contract status is, but hey, I wouldn't mind seeing Dustin, out there every now and then putting over some younger talent. So we'll see what happens.
Well, when he replaced, Keith Lee at Full Gear last November against Swerve Strickland, he came out and we're like, okay, this is a match. And it actually turned into a pretty fun match, right? For a late replacement. He's the type of guy where he doesn't have to work like a brutal schedule in WWE or anything like that, even if he went back. He works, 2 matches a month, right? No big deal. But he is such a crucial person behind the scenes. He brings so much value to AEW because he can teach the younger guys. And I think you have to keep him around if you're AEW. And yeah, he could go back to WWE, but I think he likes the AEW style, right? It's not as stressful probably. But yeah, let him wrestle.
I get paid well.
Yeah. Let him go until he's 60. Why not?
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll see. Anyways, well, that's pretty much it. This is a little rough. Hey, I'm going to admit this is a little rough around the edges for me because I have not done this before. So I want to thank Andy because Andy does this regularly on his YouTube channel. I don't know if you want to plug the channel or social media accounts. Feel free.
You can check me out on YouTube at WrestleStar.
And on Twitter, any social media?
All WrestleStar.
WrestleStar. There you go. So we'll see about doing more of these. I definitely want to do more like breaking news updates and all that stuff. So any of you guys have any comments? What do you want us to talk about in the future? It doesn't have to be current stuff, could be past stuff as well. Nostalgia stuff too as well. Whatever you guys want to talk about, leave it in the comments, drop it in the comments. I'll be doing a giveaway when we hit 100,000 subs. I'll be giving away an undisputed WWE Universal Championship, the same one that Roman Reigns holds. And all you got to do is subscribe. And then when we hit 100,000, then we'll pick a winner. All right. Thanks, Andy, for joining me. Thank you, guys. And I'll catch you on the next one.